Call to order, councillors. Please take your seats and turn your mobile devices to silent. Welcome to the public forum on Monday, the 19th of May, 2025. Public forum relates to representations from the public on agenda items before the ordinary meeting of council, which will commence tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It is a requirement that I advise all present that the public forum is being live streamed, and I advise all present that your presence at this public forum is taken as consent that your image and your voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public by our live stream. Recordings of this public forum will remain on Council's website for at least 12 months. In the chambers today, we have Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Julie Coburn, Councillor Noel Selby, Councillor Alexandra Wyatt, Councillor Ben Pakes, Councillor Annette Lawrence, and attending online, we have Councillor Arthur Bain. We have a very late entry from Councillor Adam Matchett. Thank you, Councillor Matchett, for coming today. Staff attending today are Mr. Michael Jackson, Acting General Manager, Daniel Thorogood, Director of Corporate and Commercial. Congratulations on your appointment to that role, Mr. Thorogood. Mr. Keith Hyatt, Group Manager, Water and Sewer, Dylan Reeves, Acting Director, Operations and Planning, Ms. Vicky Thomas, Acting Group Manager, Governments and Information Services, and Talia Randall, our Governance Advisor and Minute Taker. Apologies. We have no apologies for this public forum. I'll now move to the acknowledgement of country. Kempsey Shire Council acknowledges the land of the Dunghutti Nation. We pay respect to elders past and present. We acknowledge the role of emerging leaders to continue to guide us into the future. We acknowledge the stolen generations and the need to change practices to be inclusive. This always was and always will be Dunghutti land. I now move to conflicts of interest. Councillors, do we have any conflicts? I hear none. We'll now move to the guidelines. The General Manager will now outline the guidelines for the public forum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to address the Council. This time is to be strictly enforced by the Chairperson. Speakers at public forums must not digress from the item on the agenda of the Council meeting they've applied to address the Council on. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the Chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If a speaker fails to observe a direction from the Chairperson, the speaker will not be further heard. A councillor, including the Chairperson, may, through the Chairperson, ask questions of a speaker following their address at a public forum. Questions put to a speaker must be direct, succinct, and without argument. The Chairperson considers that a speaker at a public forum has engaged in inappropriate conduct. The Chairperson may request the person to refrain from the inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw and unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the speaker fails to comply with the Chairperson's request, the Chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking. This does not limit the ability of the Chairperson to deal with disorderly conduct by speakers at public forums in accordance with the provisions of the Code. Where a speaker engages in inappropriate conduct, the General Manager or the delegate may refuse further applications from that person to speak at public forums for such a period as the General Manager or the delegate considers appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. We have 6 items for today's public forum, and I thank all of our speakers today for making the time to come along, particularly given the weather that we have. And I know that we have some speakers all the way from Sydney, so I really do appreciate, and councillors appreciate, your presentations today. We firstly have Mr. Lindsay Kay, who will speak for item 10.1, presentations by school leaders. Mr. Kay, when you are ready.
Councillors, citizens, it's rare that I would have an opportunity that gives me so much pleasure than addressing this item 10.1. This is a wonderful, wonderful thing. All too often in the media, we hear of youth, and locally this has been the case, youth in the context of crime. Youth crime seems that that's the only thing that the population in general wants to think about our youth. We, as the older people, have all of the opportunities, and we've had long enough to entrench ourselves in our community and have things run pretty good for us. And they are the ones that we don't seem to consider. They are the ones that will be inheriting this and we should consider them. We all have heard that those people who have get up and go have gotten up and gone. And that does a disservice to the people who have stayed. And it does a disservice to the people who would come back if there were opportunities here for them. They are the people we need to be listening to. We all know that our kids, or some of our kids, will move away. And while they're off exploring the world, we'll get the phone call. The lease fell through. I've left university. Bank of Dad, can you please give me some money? And then you say, well, while you're getting back on your feet, why don't you come back home and, put your life back together? And in many cases, they would rather die starving in a ditch than come back to Kempsey. Now, some of that is that they made a decision to leave and go out into the world and make their way, and there would be a certain loss of pride in returning. But that is unfortunately the way that our offspring view this shire. In November 2023, that long ago, we had, I believe, the first of these school children come and speak to us, and they were inspirational. The kids from Kempsey High went so far as running their own survey to find out what the needs of young people in this valley were. And that lit a fire in me. And I have been diligently and as potently as I can pursuing youth issues in this shire ever since. I started by doing research, and it's amazing how many youth organisations there are in this shire. Sadly, they don't seem to be delivering to youth. If you ask young people about services, unless they are in crisis, there's nothing here for us, nothing going on. And so I went, after I'd actually visited all of the youth services available locally, I went to the Macleay Valley Arts Council and started a youth sub-forum. My first attempt was to get a youth forum up and running, and 0 youth attended, my first mistake. I then came up with a RSA funding grant arrangement. I haven't had no youth take up on that. I have, however, had some success with the Kempsey Sound Clash, which has been running almost every month. Young people expressing themselves musically to other young people. And I am very proud to announce that the Macleay Valley Theatre Company is about to run a youth improv group, which has been being run in Port Macquarie. So we can do things can be done. We just have to listen to the youth and then, as much as we are able, do what they say. Unfortunately, the kids that were here last time, who are now in year 12, they've gone now. They came and they gave inspirational speeches and nothing was done. There were some things that they brought up that could have easily been implemented, and I would have loved to have helped them with it. And I tried desperately to help them with it, but it's now been a longer journey than that, and they didn't get what they asked for, and I seem to be the only person who wanted to help them. So we need to ensure that there is continuity, and we need to ensure that we listen to the young people when they speak to us tomorrow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. If councillors have questions, would you be willing to answer?
Sorry.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions for Mr. Kay? Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I actually remember having discussions with you about some of those things and the forum that you did. And I really commend you for standing up and doing something and having a go, particularly with the SoundCloud thing. I think that's a bit of an area of your expertise as well. You mentioned youth services. Are they do you mean the community services that are delivering programs for, youth at risk and disadvantaged youth? Is that the programs that you meant?
I looked at every program that was available for youth, and I went and visited every single one of them.
Can you tell me what they are?
Well, they're
Because I might not know.
young people space, there
Yep.
were the youth corrections, there was the neighbourhood centre, which inspired, the neighbourhood centre inspired me to the point I now volunteer there. They're a great organisation. I went to the PCYC, and they actually are also quite inspirational, and I became a member as a result of what they're doing. Unfortunately, there are some problems in their way with them delivering services into the youth space. And so, I went to Headspace, Learning the Maclay. Who else did I go to? Well, there's a couple others in there as well. And there's a lot of people putting a lot of effort into the youth space locally, but I really don't think that they've thought it through, and they're not being led by the clients that they're supposed to be representing. And that, I believe, is a big problem.
Thank you, Mr. Kay.
Yeah,
Councillor Wyatt.
yeah. Thank you for that, and I hope that you can continue to be encouraged, and happy to have conversations with you. And thank you for standing up and doing something rather than just sitting there doing nothing. Thanks.
Do we have any more questions? Councillor Pakes.
Thanks for your presentation, Lindsay. My question is the previous feedback. What wasn't done, and what are some of the things for new councillors that we mightn't have known about from the previous feedback? What were the actions not taken?
There were some bigger picture items which I think the council would have had trouble delivering on. The first group talked about nursing services and getting accommodation for trainee nurses, which the council only has a very peripheral involvement in. So that was a bit tricky of them. But the provision of a volleyball court, if you're a young person, you want to do volleyball, you have to go to Port Macquarie. Now, that was something that I believe we could have easily achieved for those kids. But, I wasn't able to make it happen in the time I had available. And I would like someone in the sports space to partner with me, because I've got the arts somewhat covered, but the sporting side of thing I'd like someone to help me out with.
Councillor Pakes.
So is it you think it's within a sports strategy realm, or like what specifically in sport? Is it individual organisations, or specifically in the way council deals with sport?
None of the above. Without wanting to have too much of a big head about it, and I certainly don't, and I'd like someone else to take up the role, we need to be looking at umbrella arrangements, and the council find the work that they do in the space needs people in the community who are the community leaders, for want of a better word, in that area. I don't feel that I have the skills and the contacts necessary to do that role in the sports space. I'm happy to try and do it in the arts space, but that's one of the places where we have a lot of young people involved in things. And if we want to get them on board, and we want them to be giving us the direction that we should be helping them go in, then we need to have that engagement with them.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Do we have any further questions? We don't. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Kay. We'll now move to Mr. Dick Pearson, who will speak for item 10.6, Kempsey Airport Fly Neighbourly Agreement. Mr. Pearson, when you're ready.
Oh, God.
Councillors, I draw your attention to the handouts that are on your on the desk in front of you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to put some background and context to what might appear to be a very benign notice of motion. There's only two people in this audience that were here in the kerfuffle of 2017 and 19, and that's Councillor Saul and Director Thorogood. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that SCAG supports the recommendations. I would like to thank Peter Allen for taking an extremely collaborative approach in reviewing the FNA. Just for a bit of background, it's all about low-level circuit training involved as first stage of pilot training. Kempsey residents at the airport have lived in harmony with the airport since it was built in 1936, right up until 2015, when Port Macquarie-based Australian International Aviation College commenced training at Kempsey Airport under an MOU with Council. They lodged a DA in 2016 to build an $18 million flight training satellite facility at Kempsey. That led to the formation of the Save Kempsey Airport Action Group, which was about saving the amenity, wellbeing and mental health of residents living around the airport. 2017 and 19, Northern Regional Planning Panel held their meeting. There was consultants, consultations, reports, and a lot of work put in by previous Director Stephen Mitchell. 2018, AIAC withdrew their DA. Work continued and a milestone reached in June 2019 council meeting, where resolution 479 was warmly accepted. It established, among many things, a noise management plan and fly neighbourly, initially called agreement, but they're not agreements, they're arrangements or advice, because they're purely voluntary on behalf of the flying fraternity. Pilot training contains 3 stages: beginners, intermediate and cross-country. It's the beginners that's a problem. If you have a look at your handout, there's 3 sheets there referring to noise density graphics, which with the Doppler effect hopefully is self-explanatory. Current status, AIAC still occasionally use Kempsey Airport as a visiting training aircraft as part of their cross-country navigation work with the more advanced students. Use Kempsey as a waypoint, and while here they do some touch and goes circuits, and you'll see those in your handout. There's a couple of Flight Radar 24 screenshots that shows them doing some circuits, and each one of those circuits they do a touch and go. Not a massive problem, but there is a bit of a problem with it. The remaining issue is, and I must stress, we've never had a problem with the local flying local flying fraternity, nor any recreational visitors. It's been terrific. The overflying Warren Drive, you'll see on a map there, there's where the Warren Drive subdivision's located. It's now to be designated a noise-sensitive area, which we applaud, and we look forward to Peter and his team getting this not only in the updated FNA, but also in what's called the En route Supplement Australia, which is an enforceable piece of work managed by CASA. An FNA, as I said, is purely voluntary. It goes to the good grace of the pilots. URSA is enforceable. So we're happy to see that the new FNA reflected in the URSA. The last page of your sheet is actually the current Kempsey URSA, just for your own curiosity as to what one looks like. A lot of these things are bandied about and nobody in the audience realises what they are. In talking to Peter Allen, we believe there is some capacity to perhaps increase the income to Kempsey Council through the airport, through some well-managed and controlled stage 3 cross-country navigation use of the airport as a waypoint for touch and goes. And we'll certainly work collaboratively with Peter to achieve that, as long as they avoid the Warren Drive subdivision and fly a couple of 100 metres north of that subdivision before they commence their left turn to do a base leg, which then they do another left turn to line them up for landing on runway 22. So happy to commend that for Council's consideration tomorrow to pass perhaps without exception.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson, for your presentation. Councillors, do we have any questions for Mr. Pearson regarding his presentation? Councillor Selby, your question.
Yes, does this noise problem exist at other rural and regional airports?
Most certainly. When we started, we didn't know the difference between a boarding pass and an airline ticket. Port Macquarie, Moorabbin, Ballarat, Archerfield, Queensland, Mildura, Victoria, Jandakot, Western Australia. And most specifically, I'll mention Parafield at South Australia. It'll be interesting to ask the new CEO what his experiences have been down there. It's a massive problem that a lot of these high-intensity industrial-scale pilot training operations at rural and regional airports. So the answer to your question is certainly yes.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Pearson, for your presentation. What other airports would you be in conjunction with for a cross-country circuit? What other airports? You said it could be used as part of a cross-country avenue for revenue. Where else would that line up with? Port Macquarie, Armidale? Would it be touch and go in other areas? Explain that to me.
Yeah, certainly. Well, any airport that the training company wish to use. With AIAC at Port Macquarie, they commonly fly up the coast to Coffs Harbour. They might do a few circuits there. On the way back to Port Macquarie, they'll navigate to Kempsey, do a few laps there, as you've seen in your handout, and then head home to port. I think they also do a similar thing going off to Taree. I'm not quite sure about Armidale, but that's up to the operators.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, and I hope my internet holds. Thanks, Mr. Pearson. I'd be interested in how you respond to the point of view that if people built on or bought near the airport, wouldn't they be expecting some aircraft noise?
Yeah, yeah, we got a lot of that from a lot of Muppets over many years. What residents around an airport expect is normal general aviation activity, passenger transport, emergency services, recreational, business, commercial, where aircraft come and go. They'll come from somewhere, land, or they'll take off and they'll go somewhere. Whatever noise there is, it's over within 60 seconds. Not a problem. Never been a problem since 1936 until this industrial scale pilot training came to Kempsey. And so we expect normal general aviation activity. We don't expect industrial scale flight training, repetitive, low-level circuits that is the case with beginners. So that's our response. Never had a problem with any of the other aviators around Kempsey from 36 till 2015.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Councillor White, then Councillor Pakes.
Do you want to finish? Yeah, okay. I have two questions actually. The first question is you've just sort of talked about the industrial scale flight schools, which that's done and dusted. That's all gone, as my understanding. That's all gone. So, yeah, is my well, okay, is it? My understanding is that it is all done and dusted. There will be no more industrial flight school training there because of the issues that go back that you've just described.
The risk is still there. One of the good things that came out of the council resolution in 2019 was the introduction of a quadruple bottom line methodology to assess any other AIAC or other flight training business has got to demonstrate before council that there is a benefit to the community that outweighs the disadvantage. So it's done and dusted 98% to a degree of 98%.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
I have three questions. Oh, don't worry. So what else have you done? What apart from discussing with council have you done to address the noise issue?
We did a fair bit of research. Uselessly, we wrote to, I think, at least 3 deputy PMs in their role of Federal Minister for Transport. Of course, got nowhere and we never expected to. We developed a network with similarly affected community groups, New South Wales and Victoria. In fact, we were approached by residents groups at Port Macquarie and at Swan Hill, Victoria, and provided assistance in that regard. I believe Port Macquarie ended through Peter Allen in his time there, ended up with a successful fly-enably arrangement at Port. Most significantly, we put in a fairly substantial submission to the Senate Standing Committee on Rural and Regional Affairs and Transport, the Legislation Committee inquiry into general aviation. It was an air service amendment bill that was put forward by Senator Rice, 48 submissions, of which ours was one. And it was a collaborative arrangement, joint submission with Port Macquarie, Parafield, Mildura and Swan Hill.
Councillor Pakes.
My question is, has Councillor Bain been given a copy of this? Has he got access to a copy of this? Your handout?
Yes,
That's
you have,
quite explanatory.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In fact, 10 seconds to current Councillor Bain's credit, before he became a councillor, he and his group within the Greens Network were the only group to approach us in 2017 to accept us to give a bit of a talk about what the problem was. So we're most encouraged with any community leaders that are prepared to listen.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. I believe that concludes our questions for now. Thank you, Mr. Pearson, for making your presentation and your work for your handout as well.
Thank you.
We now have Mr. Chad Ritchie, who will speak for item 10.9, recognition of Dave Sands. Mr. Ritchie, with our public forum protocol, you do only have 5 minutes to speak. So if you play your video, it will actually eat into your time, unless...
It's those two go. All right, then, cool. And then when you come up, when you come up to the play bit, you just press the middle. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Can we?
Thanks. Sorry.
I just want to check if councillors are amenable to us allowing him to play the video and then listening to him.
Yep.
Mr. Ritchie, you can play your video first and then speak.
All right. So this what I've sent across is the proposal, but I just thought I'd play this clip because I think it's important. Yep.
A day begins in the ring career of the young man from Burnt Ridge, New South Wales, who started life as, but he didn't put it around, Percy Ritchie. But under the more rugged name of Dave Sands, he's punched his way to the middleweight championship of the British Empire and to 3 Australian titles, heavy, light heavy, middle. While the average Australian citizen is snoring, Sands hits the road for the daily workout that strengthens a boxer's legs. With him goes his manager, Tom Maguire, veteran fight conditioner. Now you get an idea of how a boxer's manager earns his percentage. Health hint for the middle-aged man. Run a couple of miles in the crisp morning air and you never felt better in your life. Did you ever feel better in your life, Mr. Maguire? We certainly hope you did. A fan is there to see Dave Sands begin a Champions Day, a workout in the very ring where he won national titles. What's that you said, mister? You don't think this Sands is all he's cracked up to be? Uh-huh. His sparring partner's an experienced boy. This training bout isn't any grudge fight, but they're not in there to play patty cake. Righto, ref, let's go. Sands comes out to fight, cool, resourceful, watchful. No storming at his opponent. He's a counterpuncher. He sizes his man up, picks the chinks in his armor. Well, it's a nice, quiet morning, so they spar along for a while, taking it easy, and then Dave sees a target. Bingo! And then he sees another. Another doll down. Well, Dave's got to have a workout, so his partner's got to get up again and get the works. Just sparring around, though, of course. How does Dave do it? Well, let's see. A brush off with the left, right uppercut to the jaw, bend the left lead, left to the body and right to the chin. Hurts a lot more at fighting speed. Here it goes again, left to the body, right to the head. Well, the sparring goes on, and Dave's opponent goes down. He's not satisfied. Reckons he could do better himself. Well, you can have your chance, sir. Hop in the ring. Ooh, me? Yes, you, all of us. Let's get in there. Dave must have heard about our deadly right. He's putting in his mouth guard. here we go. Don't panic. You've got 2 arms, haven't you? The thing to do is to pick a Sunday punch. The trouble is, this isn't Sunday. Hard to decide what to hit him with. They've taken your chair out of the ring. Well, go on, hit him. He won't stay put. Like being in the ring with a champ? Well, make up your mind. Here he comes. Here it comes.
Just microphone. Yep. No, you got to press it. Yep.
There we go. I'll get technology right. First, I'd like to acknowledge being here on Dungutty land, the land of my grandfather and his brothers, and also my great-grandmother and the rest of the family, but also acknowledge the mayor and the councillors here today. I don't usually read from a script. I usually talk from the heart, but I think I want to get this story right and I want to get my message across. So I think it's important to read from the script. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chad Ritchie. I'm a proud Dungutty Biripi man, and I'm proud to stand before you today as the grandson of Dave Sands, or as he was born, Dave Ritchie, a name etched not only in Australian boxing history, but also in the hearts of people here in Kempsey and around the world. Dave was born on the 4th of February 1926 in West Kempsey to George and Mabel Ritchie. He was one of 7 children, 6 brothers and 1 sister, Lillian. Together, the brothers would become known across Australia as the Fighting Sands. The Sands name was taken from a train guard called Snowy Sands, who used to let them ride the train to Newcastle without paying the fare so they could pursue their boxing careers. When Percy, the eldest, was told his name wasn't manly enough to fight under, he used Sands as his last name, as his surname, and a legacy was born. So his name Ritchie Sands. My grandfather Dave wore the Australian map proudly on his boxing trunks. He wasn't just representing himself in the ring, he was representing his people, his hometown of Kempsey, and the whole nation. He was a proud Aboriginal man, a proud Dungutty man. In a time when the odds were stacked high, he rose above every barrier placed before him. Dave fought all over the world, in England, Singapore, New Zealand, Europe, and America. He held multiple titles, the Australian middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight championships, the Australasian light heavyweight title, and the British Empire middleweight title, becoming the first Australian to travel overseas and bring back a title, black or white. He was known in the world as the man with the educated left hook. And in 1998, I had the honour of accepting his induction into the World Boxing Hall of Fame in Los Angeles. I was just 17 at the time, a young amateur boxer myself, and I had no idea of the magnitude of who my grandfather truly was until I sat with some of the sports greats. One of them, by the name of Sandy Sadler, a world champion himself, told me your grandfather was the greatest fighter I ever saw. Growing up, I'd hear stories from my grandmother, Bessie, Dave's loving wife, about the man behind the gloves. He wasn't just a champion in the ring. He was a generous, humble man who supported his community, raised money for good causes, and never turned down anyone who asked for help. Despite his international fame, Dave never forgot where he came from. He always returned home to Kempsey, to Burnt Bridge, to his mother, right up until he passed. Kempsey was in his blood. Tragically, Dave's life was cut short at just 26 years of age on the 11th of August 1952, on his 7th wedding anniversary. He was driving his family to Barrington Tops to start a training camp when he was killed in a truck rollover. At the time, he had just signed a fight for a world title. Dave left behind Bessie and the 3 children, David, Lillian and Margaret. Bessie was pregnant at the time, and their 4th child was born a month after, Donna. The people of Australia loved Dave so much that they paid off his family's home and set up a fund to support the children in their early years. Dave was voted Australia's most popular sportsman for 3 consecutive years. He inspired not just Aboriginal people, but all people of every background. He showed what was possible with grit, heart and belief. Mayor and councillors, you have the opportunity and the responsibility to help tell his story, to recognise Dave and his brothers, not just as boxers, but as trailblazers, as local heroes who carried the name of Kempsey to the world stage. It's never sat right with us that Dave hasn't been formally recognised in his hometown. Stockton, where he lived later on in life, Sydney and Dungog, where he passed, have all acknowledged his legacy, but Kempsey, where he was born, where he grew up, where he returned time and time again, still hasn't. For me, for my family, and for the many people who continue to be inspired by Dave and the Fighting Sands, this recognition would mean the world. Their story of hardship, determination, family, and triumph is one that deserves to be passed on for generations to come. It's a story that gives people hope, that reminds our young people, especially in the Aboriginal communities, that with hard work and belief, they can achieve the impossible. Thank you for your time.
You've really timed that well, down to the wire. Thank you for your presentation, Chad. And in my time as mayor, I have met you a few times, and you always show such passion for your grandfather and for the cause. And I really appreciate you coming along today, all the way from Sydney, through this wild weather system with Phil. So I really do appreciate that. Do we have any questions, councillors? Councillor Pakes.
Excellent presentation. Absolutely humbled by how much I didn't know about that. And that's great that you have come along and told us that. So thank you for coming. My question is, this community needs leaders like yourself to come back and spread a good story. Are you available to do stuff like that in looking forward into the future? Is that something that you might do? Because it's a great story.
Microphone, sorry. It's a really annoying thing.
Yeah, I'm always willing to help. A background to me, I worked for Youth Off the Streets for a long time, setting up Aboriginal youth programs and helping youth from all backgrounds. And for me, it's about inspiring the youth and giving them something to belong to. And I heard the gentleman before, sometimes you've got to do it in their backyard and go to them. It's not about, you can give them everything in the world, but they're not just going to come. You need to be there at the right time, the right place, and offer them the support, because that's what young people, they want to belong.
Thank you. Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, it's a secondary one to that. Sport in your life. Tell me what role sport played for you in your life, and how you might think that might help Kempsey.
Look, boxing gave me. Oh, do I have to press this again? Yes, no, you're on. Okay, I wasn't sure. But boxing gave me discipline, and when my mother and father split, we didn't own a car. So for me to go to boxing, I'd have to get on the bus and travel home at night, and I did that every single day from school. And for me, that's sticking to something. It gave, it taught you that doesn't matter how tough you are, there's always people out there that coming along that are better, that are younger, and it's not about, people think that boxing's about brutality and about hurting the other person. It's not. It actually gives you perspective, but actually teaches people humility, and that's really important. And I think for me, just getting fit, and you don't even have to spar, and that's really important, having those things that young people can just be a part of. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Wyatt.
Oh, yes, please. I also thank you for coming along. I've read a bit about that story, but it's very much more powerful and authentic hearing from you. So thank you for coming. Loved that film as well. How cool is that? I just wanted to ask a question about, I understand you have an artist.
Yep.
Yep. Is it, and also, but you're still looking for funding.
Yeah.
How are you going along with the funding?
We don't, at this stage, we have zero, but we've got Black Douglas on board, and also Julie Squires. We've got a design. It's about meeting the right people and trying to open the right doors. So and just trying to get the right introductions. It's been on the table now. We had to redo the Dungog Memorial because it was graffitied. It was the apex wasn't around anymore in Dungog. We managed to do that. Black Douglas helped us do that, and we did it on a budget. We've always wanted to do a bronze statue, but also incorporate the brothers, because for me and for them, they were a family unit. It wasn't one was above the other, and how they used to do things was whoever had money was the king for the day, and they looked after the other brothers and the sister, and that's what family should do. So for us, it's about being able to encompass their whole story.
Thank you. Councillor Wyatt?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Thanks for that. So Black Douglas being an Archibald winning Dungutty artist who is an Archibald Prize winner. And do you have you got a quote, or are you looking at 300, 400, 500,000?
No. So we've got it revised. That's it should be on the end of that presentation. I did resend it today, and it's 200,000. There's where is it? Yeah, so we've got the quotes for the concrete base for the Dave Sands Monument. That's Julius Squires. That's Black Douglas. So he's actually a relative. He's related, and we've got the stars engineering, and we put contingency there. Obviously, you need contingency at 31,300. But if we can get in-kind support, anyone, anything, it makes a huge difference to changing.
So are you after $100,000?
200.
200.
Because that's put a call out. I mean, that's $200,000. That doesn't seem like a lot of money to honour a very, very important person in our community that is a role model. And yeah, that's what.
And I'll be honest, the reason why I haven't done a GoFundMe page or anything like that is because Pop wasn't like that. He wasn't one he was one to give, and I find that people's hardships at the moment, it's very hard for them to give, and people will give, but I just wouldn't do that to them. And so for me, I've held back a little bit.
Sorry, I was meeting organisations going out there.
Yep.
200 doesn't seem like a lot of money, and I wish you well in getting that funding, because it's really a fantastic story to tell, and thanks for coming along.
I think that's all of our questions.
Yep.
Thank you, Chad, again for making your presentation today. Really very much appreciated. And you're all done. We now have Mr. Phil Dodai, who will speak for this item as well.
Can everyone hear me? Oh, geez, I usually speak to ministers, but I'm coming back to Kempsey's. You come back home. My name's Philip Dodai. I was born in Kempsey, and I lived at Burn Bridge, and my family were integrated into town in 1972 when I was 10 years old. And at the age of 10 years old, I realised there were two kinds of lives, the basic and luxuries and comforts. But something was inspiring me to be better, to make my life better. November the 24th, 1980, I left home with a vision, dreams, pocket full of influences, $20 and a bag of clothes. And I never looked back. I was very, very lucky. When I was back home here, I played a bit of rugby league. And I went to Sydney and made me name from there. I'm a very lucky guy. When I was little, at Burn Bridge, I sat around and listened to my father, 5 brothers and uncles talk about 6 brothers. And unknown to me at that stage as being a little boy. And when I went to high school at St. Paul's College back in those days, I looked in the Jack Pollard's Ampol records and looked at this and went, geez, this is true. These guys were bigger. These guys were the biggest sportsmen in Australia, even in the world, because you'll never find in the world 6 brothers who were professional fighters. You can go to the cricket, you can go to in Australia and you can see, and in rugby league, but you can never go in the world stage and see 6 professional fighters who were brothers. These guys, their records, you heard Chad speak about them. I don't have to say a great deal about them, because in my journey in life, they were part of me, because they inspired me to make my life better and my family. Coming back home to Kempsey, there was always something missing. Not long ago, going back a few years, or probably about 3 years, my wife was cleaning out underneath our stairs and she came out with a old rugby league jacket, and I said, that's great. She came back out the second time and said, look what I found. And it was my scrapbook that I made when I was 12 years old of the Sands family. I still have that scrapbook. 3 years ago, I said on my journey over the 50 odd years, I continued and continued. These guys were bigger and we're not doing anything to acknowledge them and recognise them nationally and in Kempsey and state. I sent away to the British boxing authorities and I wanted them to acknowledge that Dave Sands was their champion. They said yes. And I got an email that said, well, we're going to send you his middleweight title belt. That belt sits very proudly in my lounge to this day. He was never given his title belt. Come back to Australia. He was seen as the first Australian, the first Aboriginal. In Illinois in 1951, he fought Bobo Olsen. That was on October the 5th. He beat him and he was ready to fight Sugar Ray Robinson. But if you go back further, they were a family. I was part of that family. Their stories inspired me to make my life better. They bring vibrance to Kempsey. And it's time to right the wrong, folks. It's time to put our hand up and say, well, Kempsey holds a record for anything nationally and in the world. And that's 6 brothers that you can never take that off them. Yeah. I'm a very lucky guy, as I always said. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I never got into drugs because I knew what I wanted to achieve. It took discipline and respect for myself, for my mother and father, for my family, and anyone else followed. Not too many people. For the Sands, 4 words separate them from the rest of the sportsmen in Australia and the world. While they're all told to do the same thing, the Sands did a little bit more. For them, winning started on Mondays. The most competitive sport drew the most competitive fighters, and that's what they were. They were main event fighters. They weren't guys in the preliminary rounds. So their statue, their name stood out.
Thank you, Mr. Dotto.
Yeah. Yes.
That is our time.
Thank you.
Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Phil and Chad, for travelling all the way from Sydney to be here today and to present to all of us. I just wanted to, I guess I've known you guys for a few years now, and I had the privilege to know you and to support you on this journey. And I think it was when the NAIDOC, we had all of the items, the belt and everything on showcase, which was an amazing time to see everything. And I just wanted to let everyone know too, there's a lot of, I guess, items and stuff at the museum over at South Kempsey that people can go and view of the Sands brothers and stuff as well, which is great. I just wanted to, I guess, say thank you again. And a question, I guess I have a question. I know your mic's off, so you
O'clock in the morning.
You're shouting dinner after this?
Sorry, it's wonderful to see everyone smile, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
I just had a question about the proposed site that is on the business paper. So you guys, a bit of the history and stuff. So you have been in consultation with a few different people leading up to today. So can you tell us a bit about that?
They belong in the centre of Kempsey. They don't belong anywhere else. You'll never get that, as I reiterate, 6 brothers in world boxing fame. They belong at the pinnacle of it. The Harbour Bridge in the Sydney Opera House is in the gateway to Australia, they say. These guys here, Kempsey deserves that. Kempsey deserves people to come to Kempsey and see something that's never been done before. In the back of my head, I've always taken initiative. I've always done things that people can't do. and leaving home at the age of 18 back in 1989, November the 24th. With just what I had was no one could ever do that. Going to Sydney, I held records in rugby league. I held Player of the Year. That's never been done for an Aboriginal boy who went to Sydney who didn't have anyone to open the door for him.
Thank
So
you,
that's
Phil.
the art of it all. Any more questions, please?
I just want to follow on from Councillor Lawrence's question and just with the proposed site, which is at Verge Street in the alley of, well, sorry, the Avenue of Heroes. Sorry, I have the business paper.
Avenue of Heroes. Oh.
Yeah, I just want to confirm that you know, in consultation with your family and things like that, you are happy with that location.
Family members who I've spoken to have had their faith in me for a very, very long time to bring this to reality. I've always had their respect, and I've always respected them, and some of those are a little bit longer in the tooth than I am. But I speak for the family. Chad speaks for the family. It's been a journey, and I certainly believe that Kempsey deserve the best. And the vibrance they will, I've no doubt, they will bring. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Dodai. The Avenue of Honour, just for the final clarification in terms of naming. Do we have any more questions, councillors? No. Well, thank you, Mr. Dodai, and thank you again, Chad. That was a really heartfelt presentation, and I feel like there's lots of appreciation in the room. We now have Mr. Mark Walker, who will speak for item 11.1, Notice of Motion, Community Engagement, Re-Service Reduction. Mr. Walker, when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I begin my presentation, I'd just like to thank the previous speakers for bringing to our attention something that I wasn't particularly aware of until I read about it in the council papers and did some research. I finished school in Dubbo in 1979, and Dubbo also had a boxing family from the Aboriginal side of the community, the Fergusons. And Stan Ferguson, the older brother, and his younger brother, David Ferguson, were friends of mine. They're well known and well recognised and well loved in the Dubbo community. I think we should be able to do the same thing here in Kempsey. I just wanted to get that out there before I make my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. The clock has started, so begin when you're ready.
Madam Mayor, councillors, council staff and my fellow ratepayers, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this motion today. The motion seeks to provide an opportunity for council to seek input from the community as to what services or facilities council provides that the community might be willing to do without, or that they would be happy to see council spend less on. We view this as a necessary precursor to the deliberations of the Revenue and Review Task Force. In order for there to be any actual draft proposals prepared for review by the ELT, there first needs to be gathered the data on which to base these draft proposals. According to Council's much vaunted draft communication strategy, the best outcomes are reached when the community is engaged in the decision-making process at the earliest opportunity. So the motion seeks to directly engage, firstly, with recognised community leaders in essentially an everything on the table process, from which a professionally designed questionnaire can be produced and distributed through council and community channels to reach as many as possible of the ratepayers and residents, and so gain the data that will be necessary to advise the Revenue and Review Task Force. We seek to remind council that the reason the SRV was only partly approved is due to the enormous backlash against the imposition of the SRV in an already very difficult economic period for residents and ratepayers. Many of the councillors here today were elected ostensibly on a platform to ensure such SRVs are not necessary in the future, and on a platform to clean up council's expenditures and trim all unnecessary expenditure from the budget. So how do we define unnecessary? Surely, as a matter of first principles, council should be asking that question of the residents and ratepayers. Your own communication strategy points out that previous resident surveys highlighted the necessity for decision-making reflecting community opinions, with a perceived necessity to provide the opportunity to participate in council decision-making. This motion seeks to do just that. to provide an opportunity for early engagement in the decision-making process, to provide guidance from the community to the council as to what and where the community thinks council should be looking to achieve savings or increase revenues. By inviting only community leaders in the first instance, they too get to engage with the debate and perhaps become aware of some of the competing budget items seeking to secure or retain funding. We will thereby gain their cooperation rather than their opposition to the process and provide them and their organisations with both background and a better understanding of the actual processes involved in some of the decision making. As per previous attempts to communicate, the earlier the community becomes involved, the more likely they are to feel consulted and so empowered by the opportunity for input. The problem in the past and still today is that council does not appear to want to ask the hard questions. Questions that might raise the ire of any one segment of the community. By not asking the hard questions, the resultant angst and opposition might well have been avoided had council first reached out and engaged with the community. It is this angst we are seeking to minimise by proposing this motion to council. As others have railed in this chamber, we have to do more to engage with the community, to consult with the community and not simply make decisions in a vacuum void of community voices. Before the review task force makes any decisions, before anything is brought to council for debate, before council makes any decision about cutting or limiting services, the community must be consulted. And a survey questionnaire, properly designed so as to ask the hard questions and receive free and frank responses, is by far and away the cheapest and easiest option to garner the views of the widest cross-section of the community. I commend this motion to you all and hope you can see the importance of reaching out proactively to the community and involving them at the earliest possible stage in the process of minimising expenditures, maximising revenues and balancing the budget so as not to require any future SRVs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Do we have any questions, councillors? Councillor Pakes and then...
Thanks for your presentation. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. My point is probably towards the Revenue and Review Task Force that you referred to. At what point do you think that the Revenue and Review Task Force should be involved in regards to the operational plan that's out? And I'm just not sure how relevant that is to this motion, but it is pertinent to the motion because the things in that OP are the service reductions we might be talking about.
Yeah, I hear you. I guess my point about the Revenue and Review Task Force is a response to the acting GM's comment in the agenda that the Review Task Force is already covering this area, and clearly that's not the case because the Revenue and Review Task Force has no proposal whatsoever to address the community, speak to the community, or ask the community what the community wants. And it's our understanding, and we've been working on this for quite a long time, that without that data, whatever decisions the Review Task Force makes and whatever draft proposals they bring to the ELT and to council will be fatally flawed because it lacks that data of what the community wants, what the community is willing to expect and willing to tolerate.
Councillor Pakes, do you have a follow-up or Councillor Wyatt?
Oh. Yeah, no, I have a follow-up. It's just particularly to the new CEO being in position. What are your thoughts in regards to this? What you suggested in regards to the new CEO being in place? Where does that sit with this?
I think it presents an excellent opportunity for the incoming CEO to get a feel for what the community is all about, what the community wants, what they expect, what they demand, what they desire. I mean, we know in the past from the Micromex surveys, if you just ask, what do you think about such? People go, oh, well, we want this and we want that and we want something else. It's always more. And people need to understand that the pot of money just isn't that big and it doesn't keep expanding unless we keep hoeing out these SRVs and digging into the ratepayers' pockets. So it would be a perfect opportunity for the incoming CEO to proactively engage with the community and sort of set the standard or raise the bar for council involvement in the community to find out what this data is. And as I said, a survey questionnaire is the cheapest way to do it. You know, phone surveys, you're paying someone to make the phone calls. It costs a fortune. That's why the Malcolm X ones are so small.
Councillor Coburn and then Councillor Wyatt.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the presentation. Couple of questions. Mine was one around the new CEO starting, because that's going to happen quite soon. Do you have any expectation of how that CEO will approach that financial sustainability area in particular, or an expectation?
In terms of expectations, I would expect that the incoming CEO will want to talk to all the councillors and all the ELT, but also to talk to the community, to begin the process of embedding themselves into the community and finding out what it is that the community wants. I mean, at the end of the day, council's role is to provide services within the community, and the corollary of that is that council's duty is to provide services that A, people want and need, and B, that the community can afford. Now, at the moment, clearly, we're not getting that right. And at some point, we're going to sit down and ask the hard questions and say, okay, how do we do this right? This is the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And I agree with you on that. I think it's a good opportunity too. And I would imagine the new CEO will come in and really be looking at council's function.
Councillor Coburn.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. So when you talk about the engagement with community, bugbear for me, because we want engagement with community and it's really quite difficult to do. Are there any other ways you believe we could engage with community to perhaps make this sort of thing happen?
Far be it from a 30-year marketing manager to tell council how to run its business. But yeah, I'd be happy to give advice to council on what else they could do. But some very basic things, just food for thought. Council has its own Facebook page, which it posts up its quote unquote official communications. There are 10 or 20 other Facebook pages within our community that council just ignores. So the way Facebook operates, there are these little niches that the algorithm has created around Crescent Head or Spadco or Hat Head or Southwest Rocks. And if council isn't actively engaging with those micro communities, then they're not hearing.
Yeah. How do you think the community would feel about doing, say, workshops, like a face-to-face workshop session where we're inclusive, where we do involve council staff, councillors, and the community?
You mean as a one-off or as a regular thing?
No. As in light of this particular issue.
Well, I guess essentially the proposition within the motion is that we do exactly that. That we invite the leaders of all the community groups, and when I say community groups, I mean the sporting groups, the land councils, other community organisations, the charities, the hospital, the schools. We need people within the community to tell us, A, what do we want and what are we willing to do without? So let's say, for argument's sake, I know Councillor Pakes is involved with the cricketing club. Let's say someone in the debate forum, whatever you want to call it, says, "Oh yeah, let's get rid of the cricket club." Councillor Pakes and Sam say, "Oh, I don't think that's a great idea." And so we can have this debate and over time rank these things in terms of priorities. But it's a very poor analogy. But one of the classics that popped up.
What's time? Do you have any further questions?
May I continue?
No, you only get a minute. Councillor Coburn, do you have another question?
No, I'll throw it out.
Oh, I didn't realise your question. If you had another one, otherwise you must be done. Councillor Wyatt.
Yep, thanks. I was going to ask the same question. So there's 31,000 people in our community. 85% are over the age of 16. Our community strategic plan just got back 13 comments. 2 of them were from Councillor Bain and I, so that's 11 out of 31,000. The Micromax survey did identify a top few things around roads infrastructure, and then it had a whole bunch around the low things around arts, culture, recreation, pools, airport, slim, dusty. What do you think a survey will tell us different?
Critically, it depends on how you ask the questions. Now, my expertise in marketing involved designing survey questionnaires. So I can tell a good survey questionnaire when I see one, and one that isn't particularly well worded. And the Micromax ones were particularly poorly worded, especially because they didn't provide any opportunity for people to say maybe. It was yes or no. There's no maybe, and there's no other. It's essentially we're not asking the hard questions, and that's what we need to ask. So some of the hard questions are, for example, the analogy I use with the cricket club. Do we support the cricket club, or do we support the Gladstone pool? You know, we've got to balance these things, and we've got to rank them, and we need the people to have their say in how we do. We're a democracy, right? We can't just have 9 people making all the decisions about something that affects 30, 38, 35, 31,000 people.
Councillor Wyatt.
So I lost my train of thought, but I mean that's what governments are. Federal, state, and local government is people elected to represent the voice of the community, and 9 people here should be going out and getting that back from the community. But so you talk about hard questions. Give me 2 examples of a hard question that we could ask.
Okay, so if you ask the questions that they normally ask in the Micromax type surveys, it's like, how do you feel about this on a scale of 1 to 10? Do you think we should have this service or facility? That's not the right question to be asking. The question that we have to be asking is, do you want this service or that service? Because we can't afford both. And that's the hard stuff, because someone is going to be offended no matter what we do. And we have to wear the fact that someone's going to be offended. The point is, whatever council has been doing in terms of communications and reaching out, it isn't working. You said that yourself. You've said it before. I know other people have said that. The community does not feel that council represents them. The community does not feel that they are being heard. We need to do more, not less.
Councillor Pakes.
So we'll go on this sport one because I love sport, but specifically around priorities. I think what you talk, for me, it feels like you're talking about priorities. So a workshop of sporting user groups across the valley to prioritise their needs in the sporting organisations. Would that fit what you're talking about?
That'd be half the equation. So the other half would be, what are you guys willing to do that council currently does to save council money? What else could you guys be doing? I know from talking to people in other sports like football and soccer that whenever they want something done or need something done, like they need the mowing done or they need a drain cleared or whatever, it takes council months to do it because no one but council is allowed to do it. So maybe there needs to be something innovative like an actual communication and some sort of cooperative sort of venture set up, the way things used to be done 50 years ago when council had no money and was about this big. You know, we've got to the point where everything has devolved to council, and council now has this huge, expense budget without having the income budget to match it. Something has to give.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Councillor Pakes.
So what I'm understanding is a hybrid service delivery for sporting groups is what you're talking about, which somewhat exists, but is that what you're talking about? Hybrid service delivery?
You can call it whatever you like. I don't mind. That was just an idea, riffing off what you were talking about. But if we get to the point where council says, and again you're saying with your point with priorities, council says, okay, well, what are the priorities? How do we know what the priorities are? Yes, we can measure things like roads and the damage to roads, and so we can prioritise roads that get used more often. But what do the people want other than the potholes fixed? For example, the Gladstone pool is a classic example. Gladstone's tiny. You know, even if you include Smithtown, it's still tiny compared to there's 500 people in Gladstone and Smithtown combined. They've got this huge pool that originally was set up with local, like very local Mid-Valley community money. And then at some point, the community went, oh, this is all too hard. Here, council, you look after it. And now council and the rest of us are stuck with it. The aquatics survey rightly pointed out that we don't need 4 pools and that any council our size shouldn't have 4 pools. And that was one that was obviously had to go.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
That's the hard questions.
I think you draw on a very good point there, Mr. Walker. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Coburn? All right. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Walker. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
We now have Mr. Paul Hodgson, who will speak for item 11.2, Notice of Motion, Flying Fox Management.
Oh, that's on. Is there a pointer on that? Yeah, can I just change the page? Right, is there a pointer on that? Right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mayor, councillors, GM, and all other relevant staff here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Paul Hodgson, and I live at Burlbrook. And my role in Burlbrook, apart from being a relatively small farmer, is I'm the president of the Burlbrook Hall and the Burlbrook Progress Association. And I'm basically talking here on behalf of key residents in Burlbrook. I guess the aim or the end state of this motion is pretty simple. Is this notice of motion requests Kempsey Shire Council to conduct as a priority a community engagement session with all key Burlbrook stakeholders in order to assess the impacts and caused by the local flying fox camp. I'll give a little bit of background very quickly on the Burlbrook camp. Flying Fox Camp. The camp was first observed and locally recorded in December 2019 and is permanently occupied. The maximum total number of flying foxes has not been officially recorded, and no Burlbrook specific information was found in the Australian Government National Flying Fox Monitor viewer, which is online. And that was last entered by the government in 2019. So it started 2015. Well, this is what I believe, started 2015, 2019. Here comes COVID. No more recording of bats, flying fox establishments. The local consequence is that the flying fox arrived in Burlbrook after the first fires in December 2019. They stayed in the village park for 18 months, then left for a short time. Mid-year 2022, the flying fox returned to Burlbrook Park and the numbers have increased exponentially, moving from the middle of the local park to closer surrounds, including behind the school, the RFS station, the police station and Burlbrook Hotel, and not to mention the organic group that the residents that are living around the park itself. The situation at the moment, if I could just get to the next slide. Oops, I'll go back one. It's a little bit blurry, and I apologise for that. But the centre, if you look at the screen or your monitor, the centre of the Burlbrook Park is the red circle. That's the Flying Fox camp. They never went anywhere else other than there. Why they went there, who knows? But as you spin out across the blue line, they're now into there, and they're still in the park. And the yellow line is probably they haven't reached that far yet, but they're concentrated in the red and blue area at the moment. If you look at there's a number one, the number one numeral with that's a young Indigenous family, 4 children, a beautiful family. They rent there, and they have abandoned their backyard. It is disgusting. It made me cry. I was in the army for 32 years. It made me cry. You go in there, they've moved everything, toys, play swings, you name it, all on the front yard. I've got a photo of it. And the young mother has gone through 3 clothes dryers, but she hasn't been able to hang her clothes on the line for 3 years. She's now, as I said, bought 3. I don't know if she paid for them, but she's had 3 thingos. They've lost 2 dogs. We don't know where that's come from. And moving around at 12 o'clock to that number 1, there's 2 76-year-old and a dying man in a caravan. It's hard to believe. And they're 70. Feces everywhere. You go to the next house, we've got a 76-year-old elderly pensioner. His place, I can't describe that, but her next door neighbour is a 100-year-old Indigenous woman with the same problem. But anyway, I've said enough there. Well, time's running out. Look, I know everyone's busy. I did send a fairly 12-page...
Mr. Hodgson, unfortunately, that's the end of your 5 minutes.
I did not miss the bell.
Yeah, you missed the bells, unfortunately.
All right, then.
Councillors, do we have questions? Councillor Wyatt.
Thank you for coming along and thank you for coming. Yeah, no worries. Thank you for coming along and your presentation and your notes. I read all your notes. So if you feel that you haven't given your presentation, they're there. So I've read them. Yep. What are you wanting council to do?
As I said the aim of this motion is only one thing, is for Kempsey Shire Council team come up and have one community engagement. We've been asking it since October 2024. They indicated in correspondence won't be before March 25 before they had time to come out. It's well past March 25 now, and no one seems to care. I know they just don't, and I think we've all got a duty of care, whether you're in council or whether you're a community. We all have a duty of care, but it's now a welfare issue, and my fundamental thing is that the Bat Flying Fox colony is in the centre of Bellbrook Park, our park, your park. I know you won't touch private land. I know the government won't. But now the school principal has to deal with bats.
Thank you, Mr. Hodgson. Councillor Wyatt, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, please. What kind of, and so you're wanting council to come out and consult, so you're wanting council to come out and talk to the community about educational or how to live with bats, or do you want them to remove the bats or do something like a management action to disperse the bats?
Well, thank you for the question. You're not going to get an idea of the bats from the paper. All it is that relevant key leaders of the council, the relevant environmental, whatever, just come out, meet at the park. It's all there. It's all there to look at. Get a few case studies, have a look around, and then early engagement, as the gentleman said before, the preparatory early engagement is the most important thing, because that's what delivers planning, and that's all. The bats don't affect me, but I can't handle it.
No, thank you. No further questions.
Councillor Pakes.
Thanks for your presentation. I've been to Bellbrook and seen what you're talking about. Worked in the school. So specifically to the school, have they had any issues that you can raise? Because that might be more pertinent to the school.
Oh, for sure. So the school principal, we talk about a lot. She's provided all information up to the Department of Education. What she has to do, well, she was dropping the dead bat off up into the bin the other day when I was driving past. I got a photo of her, but I didn't put it on the presentation. But she has to teach her staff and students about bat awareness. of flying fox awareness. I don't think that's really her responsibility. And yeah, so irrespective of how much research out there in dangers, and they're pretty rare, but you don't want children to be picking up dead bats. Oh, and also a young boy, I think he was about 4 years old, his mother came over to me and she says, "What do I do with the dead bat?" I said, "Well, because little Johnny's just picked it up from the veggie garden." Beautiful.
Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, my other question's around livestock, as in horses. I know that a few years back, the bats carried a disease that infected horses. Is there any other livestock in that area? Because that's another angle to approach.
Well, that was the virus, and that was based on the horses catching that virus from a particular species of bats. We don't hear much about that anymore. That was a bit like COVID. That's sort of gone. But now, I'm not an expert, but there's very few people that died, as far as I'm aware. But if a child was to have eat a bit of food from a piece of food with a bit of feces on it, it could, from my research, gastro problems and things like that.
Councillor Pakes.
Thank you. I hear you. Yeah, cheers.
Are there any further questions? No. Thank you for making your presentation, Mr. Hodgson, and I'm sorry that your timer ran out before you could finish. But if you want to share your presentation with councillors, you can email that to. Yeah, all right, awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Harley will share that with all of us. Thank you. And thank you for making the time in. And thank you to all our speakers for coming today, and our gallery as well. Please make sure that you get home safely and take care of yourselves. Thank you.